He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on TABtouch.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff.
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch. You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose TABtouch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hello and welcome to Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, and we're right in the middle of a hectic NBL schedule, games every single day, and big news for us to talk about every single day. I'm delighted to be joined by the inaugural South East Melbourne Phoenix coach, the current GM of basketball of the South East Melbourne Phoenix, Simon Mitchell. And Simon, before we run through the list of things to talk about, thanks for joining me once again. I hope you had a great Christmas and New Year. And boys, isn't this a hectic time in the world of the NBL?
Yeah, very hectic. New Year's Eve was wonderful. We got the win over Illawarra Hawks, so I enjoyed that very much. And, we had a nice little break over Christmas, so I was able to spend a little bit of time around the house, which was also very unusual nice for Christmas time in the NBL. So, I had a wonderful little break.
No, fantastic. And, there's so much for us to get through. If we just run through this list, there's some sad news that we'll get to shortly with the passing of Darryl Pearce, but your South East Melbourne Phoenix keep on winning, even though Derrick Walton Jr. is now unfortunately injured again. Brisbane Bullets and the Tasmania Jack Jumpers, they've taken a pretty severe injury blow, but they're still in the top six mix. It was an incredible Jack Jumpers win in overtime against the 36ers that kept them, inside the top six right now. Melbourne United, they've won a couple of games, not very convincingly, but they could still be sitting in top spot as of Saturday night as a result. I think the 36ers and the Wildcats are looming pretty large across the league as well with the basketball they're playing, and a pretty dramatic week for the Sydney Kings once again, as tends to follow them around. A lot for us to get through, Simon.
It is every week in the NBL.
Yes. Let's start with the unfortunate news. Unfortunately, Darryl Pearce, the Iceman, a championship winner at both the Adelaide 36ers and the North Melbourne Giants, passed away as of the weekend. And yeah, terrible news. He's still a young man at 64. I've spent a bit of time talking to Scott Ninnis over the years about him, and he thought the world of him. And I'm sure, Simon, you would have come across him a little bit in your travels, and he was living in Melbourne, so I'm sure you did bump into him, and you certainly would have seen a lot of his career unfold. Very sad news, but what are your recollections of the Iceman?
Yeah, extraordinarily sad news, and look, I didn't know Darryl well. We've met each other a few times through the years, and through basketball functions and whatnot. And he played with a bunch of mates of mine, and on a Monday night, a team I used to actually play with. And you hear nothing but wonderful stories about Darryl. I was very privileged to watch Darryl growing up. Certainly one of my favourite players, one of the most incredible catch and shoot blokes you would ever see play the game. It's the effortless stroke, the speed of the release, and then of course the accuracy of his shot. Like he shot over 42% from 3-point land for his career. And just to sort of put that in perspective, I had a quick run through the numbers of how many times Andrew Gaze superseded 42% in his long career. Yep, it was twice.
Yeah, wow.
So I would put Darryl at the very top echelon of shooters that I've seen in this sport. I'd put him alongside, from an NBL perspective, Paul Stanley, who played with Melbourne Tigers and Hobart Devils, and one of my old teammates, Mark Gaze, who also shot 42% for his career in the NBL. And very similar to Darryl, that quick release and incredible accuracy, and just it's always sad. It brings the basketball community together, these things, but it's not what you want to bring the community together. But it is good that everybody tells the stories, leans on each other, and you realise how small this world is. The basketball world is, and he'll be missed by many teammates, his family, and many fans across the country. Yeah,
absolutely. He's in the Australian Basketball Hall of Fame. He's in the Adelaide 36ers Hall of Fame. His number 4 has been retired by the 36ers, so his memory will live on. But yeah, very sad news. All right, we'll talk about all these things in a little bit more detail as we go along, Simon, but just some talking points that popped into my head as we're putting together our run sheet. you probably don't know a hell of a lot about what happened, but what happened with the Sydney Kings and Lamonte Turner is something you don't see very often. The fact that they will now be playing the rest of the season without an import is quite incredible. You go down the list, and there was you would have been there in Traralgon on Saturday night. That was a dramatic night in all sorts of ways, but your Phoenix got an important win. That Jack Jumpers win over the 36ers in overtime was quite incredible as well. Just how they found a way to win that game that they probably had no right winning. Melbourne United, they've won their last couple, and they've done it on perfectly executed last possessions, but up until then, they still aren't playing great basketball. The 36ers, they continue to beat the Illawarra Hawks. They've got their number, and they've had a couple of big wins. The Wildcats are doing well on the road. Across the league, injuries are mounting, and I can't help but think perhaps that's with the pretty hectic schedule that a lot of these teams are now playing. What sticks out to you, Simon? What's on top of your thoughts right now?
Yeah, well, they're all good talking points, and I'm sure that's going to fill up an hour pretty quickly. But I guess at this stage, as we start to head into the back end of the season, the NBL season is a war of attrition, and being healthy at the right time of the year is paramount to success. And we go back to last year, and Melbourne United and the Tassie Jack Jumpers, and they were the two most. The two healthiest rosters at that time of year and for the season itself. So it comes around and goes around. And I know we at South East Melbourne have really struggled throughout the years to keep a regular team for great durations. And we've been fortunate this year to definitely have the healthiest year that we've ever had as a franchise. But obviously we fell victim to it again on the weekend, losing a very key piece of our championship aspiration. So it is what it is, and it's just as we've seen with Tassie, it's certainly not the end of the world. You've just got to find other ways to navigate the game.
Yeah, you're right. You can still find ways to win, can't you? All right, we'll go through all of those things in a bit more detail as we go along through this hour. But round 16 so far, there's a lot of games to get through. The round officially finishes with the Bullets and the Wildcats, which will happen after we finish recording this episode, Simon. But the results so far, we go back to last Thursday night. Melbourne United, with one of those late executions, beat the Sydney Kings 92-88, and then the game we touched on, the Jack Jumpers beat the 36ers in overtime 104-103. Then we saw the Hawks beat the New Zealand Breakers 108-80, and then in Gippsland, the South East Melbourne Phoenix beat the Brisbane Bullets 105-86, but it was a much closer game than that scoreline suggests at the finish. Then the Perth Wildcats, they hammered the wounded Jack Jumpers 105-73. The Sydney Kings got the job done over the Taipans 91-87. And then again, Chris Golding was the hero with Melbourne United beating the New Zealand Breakers 91-89. And then for the third time this season, the 36ers beat the Illawarra Hawks 91-88. And then as of Tuesday night, the Phoenix went up to Far North Queensland and got the win 113-102. Any of those results really jump out to you, Simon?
Oh, I think you got to go to the Melbourne United results and just their ability to clutch victory down the stretch. It's just, it's a testament to their organisation and Dean Vickerman especially, but also just the veteran players that they have. They've probably had it, well, I wouldn't say up and down. They're mostly down month and a half probably. Yeah. And, a lot of people are probably looking at them and saying, well, geez, they're a bit long in the tooth. But when you get in those close situations, it's nothing like veteran players to make plays. And, whether it be Chris on a catch and shoot from 40 feet or laying a back screen and, they know what they are and they know how to execute. They've been in that situation many times. And, that's why I think many people still believe them to be a championship threat despite their current woes in form.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to them a bit more later, but the fact that they can still finishing this weekend on top if they beat the Hawks on Saturday says it all about how they still find a way to get it done, even if they are still playing, not the best of basketball. Okay, so let's get to our awards and update on our votes. We'll start with your Player of the Year voting, Simon. Thanks to Sports Card World, we'll get the round 16 votes done once that final game finishes for the round officially, and there's probably a good chance that Bryce and Casey feature in your votes, so we'll see how they go in that last game. But going back to round 15, Jalen Adams had a couple of great games for the Sydney Kings. Kendrick Davis continues to light it up for the 36ers. Bryce Cotton had another, I think that was after his 41-point game. From memory, Casey Prather kept going. And Taron Armstrong, I think it showed a lot of maturity from him to bounce back from two pretty poor games on Boxing Day and then New Year's Eve to be instrumental in firstly that win over the Hawks and then with the Taipans playing better ever since. It's not a lay-down misere that Bryce wins this award, is it? Kendrick Davis is really hot on his hammer.
Yeah, I'm not across the totals just at this point in time. Look, I think Player of the Year and the way that we adjudicate this is quite different to MVP of the league.
Yep.
I know that certain media outlets, being every media outlet, bar this one, seems to think that there's MVP candidates. There isn't. It's Bryce Cotton. He's without a doubt the MVP of the league.
Yes.
Now, the way we do our Player of the Year is that we do it across a round.
Yeah.
And so, therefore there's different things that we have to take into account. Now, how many games did you have in the round? Did you help your team become victorious? Did you split games in the round? Do you play both ends of the floor?
Yep.
Lots of things to consider, and therefore it's a little bit different than, say, an MVP. And even under the old MVP where you'd give game votes. So this one's a little bit more difficult because it's like, okay, we're taking the whole league over the course of a round. So yeah, look, it's going to be a little bit closer. But at the end of the day, Bryce Cotton is the league MVP. I don't want to hear any arguments. But Kendrick Davis is certainly a chance to win our award.
Absolutely. I think Ben Air might disagree. He was very quick to put Matt Hurt into the MVP discussion after that win in Cairns. Without any spoilers though, Simon, once we get our round 16 votes, it has to be time for Matt Hurt to be part of it, doesn't it?
The Player of the Year award?
Well,
there's still a game to go. I don't want to preempt, but I certainly have collated my numbers and taken my notes. And, Matt did feature fairly heavily in one of two teams to go 2-0 this round. So he might just crack it.
Yes, I think so. We'll get to him shortly. The Damo Award, the best defensive player, going back to round 15, Malik Lewis got the 3 votes. Xavier Cooks the 2, Lat Mayen for the 1 for that job he did on Chris Golding. It's pretty much a race in 2 on Damo's leaderboard, but one of those players is out for the rest of the regular season. Are you comfortable that Wani looks like he's going to be the one that wins this award?
I certainly would never disagree with Damo. What he knows about defence supersedes pretty much everyone else in the country. So, although he does have a tendency to like anyone who's played through Perth, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
But look, I'm happy to see Malik's name there. I think he's been a little bit understated, but maybe underappreciated by the league to this point. I think there's a lot of credit given in a lot of different veins to the resurgence of South East Melbourne this year. But I think as key as anything has been the insertion of Malik into the starting lineup and giving us a point of attack defender that can switch, can put pressure up the floor, has active hands and can also lock down. So he's to me one of the physically most gifted defensive players in the league. So I'm glad to see his name get a little acknowledgement. Swacker's had a season. Remember, he's on a team full of memories and stars this year, and certainly deserves a tip of the hat from Damo. Yeah,
I think Malik's third from memory, just behind Wani and Will Magnay. So he's still a chance to win it if he has a big last. But still got five rounds of voting to go, so he could still snatch it. Okay, before we take our first break, Simon, let's talk about the Phoenix a little bit. Playing some terrific basketball right now. I mean, you look at the bigger picture ever since you made the coaching change, and the Phoenix have gone 13-5, and since Josh King got here, 11-4. You've now won 8 of the last 10 games and scored 100-plus points in the last 8 games in a row, averaging 107.1 in each of those. I know Josh King talked after the game in Cairns that he wants to see a bit better defense, but, you can't argue with the results. And the fact that you're giving up more points, but it's also because you're playing at such a fast pace that there's just a lot more possessions in these games. So that does skew those numbers a little bit. But what do you think of the bigger picture of the way the Phoenix are going right now?
Yeah, I think we're absolutely thrilled with the turnaround. We've always believed in the potential in this team and the personnel in it. losing Derrick is extremely unfortunate, but we feel like, we do have a little bit of coverage at that position now.
Yeah,
By
sure.
no means can we replace Derrick Walton Jr. So it's going to have to be a few guys who can step into the breach and not just at his position. His ability to execute in the crunch is really important. And so I think in the last two games, we've really found I've been really pleased that the ball's going through Matt Hurt's hands and running plays through the post even for him, throwing it back. Not too often you see too many post touches these days, but I think down there his ability to score, his unselfishness, and his ability to score if there's a switch, facing the basket, backing guys down, or against other guys. He's got so many different moves. I feel like that's a real strength for us. So we're happy where we're at. I still think there's an enormous improvement in this group. I still think that we can play a little smarter. I don't think we've put a full 40 minutes together. Even if we go back to the two games this round, we were a little bit slow out of the gate against Brisbane, but I thought our second half was really, really dominant on both sides of the ball. I thought our shooting was excellent. I thought our defense up the floor was incredible. And I thought that, a guy like Owen Foxwell inspired his teammates to play harder with his efforts. And
just touching on that quickly, I thought the momentum in the game turned when he in the game against Brisbane, he tipped the ball out of his hands, dove on the floor in front of Nordo, got the turnover. It felt like that was a massive turning point in that game. To out hustle probably the best hustling player in the competition was a big moment.
A huge moment in the game, and it wasn't the only one. I think there was one early in the third quarter as well, which resulted in a jump ball again with Nordo. Casey Prather may have jumped on Foxy's head there, but we let that one go. Look, I reckon there was three plays where he just sort of inspired his teammates through his endeavours, and like that doesn't come up on the stat sheet, but it certainly affects the game. And you're right, that did have a compelling turnaround. Now, it didn't really turn around on the scoreboard immediately, and mostly because Casey Prather hit a three at the end of the half there, and it's sort of the momentum we had gathered after that play by Foxy kind of swayed back to Brisbane. But it inspired his teammates to come out and play a much better brand of defence in the second half. I thought last night in the game against Cairns, I thought we fell into a little bit of a trap, which you can do up there, is to fall into that sort of pickup game. Now, we're pretty good at that. I understand, we can score as good as any team in the league, and we've got guys who can score certainly, wide open spaces. Sobey and Matt Hurt are as good as anybody in those conditions. But it wasn't until we really sort of nailed down in the last 5, 6, maybe 7 minutes of the fourth quarter that you could see a bit of a turn in the way we approached it. We're a little bit more methodical in the way we went about our offense in those last minutes as well. And I thought that helped us defensively immensely. And look, we've shown we can compete in different brands of basketball, but I've still yet to see us do it for 40 minutes. So that's a positive for us. You'd hate to be thinking that we've peaked. I think there's still plenty of improvement in this group.
Just a bit more on Matt Hurt. I mean, the two games he had is incredible. I mean, 65 points, 19 rebounds, but so efficient. He's completely unguardable because he can, like you touched on before, he can score in so many different ways. He can do it with his back to the basket. He can step out and shoot. He can do it inside. He's got a nice mid-range shot. So he's got so many weapons to go to, but he only took 65 points on 38 field goals, and he made 28 of them. 33-7 against Cairns, 32-12 against Brisbane. To be honest, I don't know if he could play much better. I mean, it was an incredible two-game performance from him.
Yeah, it really was. And he's probably hampered a little bit by foul trouble in the first game against Brisbane too, because he was really rolling and picked up 2 fouls pretty early and was forced to sit out, a good portion of the first half. So, look, you're 28 to 38 from the field for a weekend. My criticism of Matt here would be get more shots.
More shots, yeah.
Get him more. Look, he's been a marvel this season. It's been throughout. And the thing I loved about Matt is that, like, even when things weren't going well for us and over the first few rounds of the season, he's just a player. He's just happy to turn up and play basketball, and little affects him. I'm not saying he's not a deep thinker of the game. He just enjoys playing the game, and I think he finds the positive even when things aren't going well. And it's just a huge trait to be able to shut everything that's going on around you, shut that out and just do your thing. And he's certainly got that in spades. I mean, he's played in big basketball. He's a Duke Blue Devil, so he's played in front of huge TV audiences, in front of huge crowds at the pointy end of college basketball. And very little seems to fluster him. And the other thing I like also is just his willingness to deflect attention. He puts out these outstanding performances. They throw a mic under his nose at the end of a game, and it's always about his teammates and what they're provided for him. So I think his match play certainly shows that sort of unselfishness as well. Yeah, look, we're happy with what he's been able to provide, and I think others that may not be affiliated with the Phoenix might throw a few more bouquets at him.
Yes, even Adam Ford after that win on Tuesday night said that he deserves more recognition for what he's doing as well. The other player I want to get your thoughts on is Nathan Sobey. So we've watched him over his entire career, and there's been times when he does cop a lot of criticism for the way that he plays and perhaps some of the rush shots or the ill-advised shots that he takes at times, but he's stepping up as a leader right now for you. He's delivering in the big moments, but he's playing under great control, and he's proving himself a great leader and teammate. Has he impressed you just with we know what a brilliant individual player he is, but how there's a lot more to him that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, look, I think he's grown as the season's grown, and his performances have been almost a barometer of ours. When his game improved, we improved as a team. I think he's a player that wants to be coached and coached hard and held accountable for when he does make those mistakes. And I think Sam and Josh have both been able to do that and hold him to account and, bench him when, he's not going to like being benched, but bench him when it's required and, let him know when some things are unacceptable at both ends of the floor. And what we're seeing from Nathan Sobey right now is probably more like the guy we saw in Adelaide than maybe Brisbane.
Yeah, sure.
That he's got a little bit of support around him, so he doesn't have to score heavily every night, even though he has been fairly regularly. But we saw in the game against Tasmania, third game in 6 days for the Phoenix on the road, and I think he finished with 6 points from memory on a handful of shots for the game. And for a 34-year-old who plays a rather robust version of the game, it's not surprising that perhaps the tread was running a little bit thin by that stage of the road trip. But the maturity that he showed to defer to his other teammates and still perform at the defensive end, I thought was really key and a real indicative of where Nathan Sobey is right now as a player. And look, he's been a great leader for this ball club since crossing over from Brisbane. His teammates made him captain. Yep. And a lot of the leadership that he's shown behind the scenes is not evident to the outside viewer, but he's been well received by everybody at the club.
Do you think he enjoyed that win over Brisbane just a little bit?
I reckon it might have tickled his fancy a little. I actually didn't get a chance to watch the game back until last night, before our game before Cairns. We've had a pretty heavy schedule here at Phoenix and obviously playing in Gippsland. Didn't get home until mid-morning. I did notice he was glancing at the Brisbane bench after a few buckets. So, I reckon he might have enjoyed it. But look, that's a bit of byplay. I think for the most part, he had a good game up in Brisbane, what we weren't successful in. Yep. And look, there might be a little bit of tension between coach and player there, but I feel like that. Yeah, look, it's just a little bit of showmanship. It's good for the game. Yeah,
absolutely. You certainly know that the league will be using it every chance they get as a promotional tool. Just lastly, before we take a break. The venue in Gippsland, Justin Schuller clearly made his thoughts about it afterwards, and he did feel like it contributed to some of the injuries that his players suffered. I don't know if it had any impact on Derrick Walton's or not. You would have a better idea on that. But in your point of view, was the venue suitable? Was it just unlucky that you got a storm and then creates a humid atmosphere, and then it's really tough for the air conditioner to do anything? I mean, was the venue okay in your mind?
Look, it was definitely slippery, but that's not unusual for any stadium. It's going through those weather conditions. Yeah. I'm going to reveal a little secret here. I might have cost our club a chunk of change last night, a whole bunch of money, because when it comes down to, I don't even know what they call it, but this competition the NBL is running, I had two teams in mind. The shootout, yeah. I had two teams in mind that we should probably think about, and they were Cairns and Perth. Now, my reasoning for not picking Cairns, and as I said, I might have cost us a chunk of change last night because I think we scored 113. That
You would be leading right now, yes.
Yeah, is you can get a game up there where it rains during the day and it's slippery and it's, the humidity is really hard to play in. I mean, these things happen. And we had that similar sort of circumstances in Traralgon where it had been hot for a couple of days straight, and then we had really heavy storms just prior to tip-off during that day. And, look, those are the conditions you're going to be dealt. And, I'm not sure how much the conditions had to do with Emmett Nah or Dingadell.
Yeah.
But certainly there was some slippage there for Josh Bannon, and he fell over and then tried to get up quickly and slipped in his own perspiration. But it wasn't on a sticker or anything like that. That could really happen at any stadium.
Yep. And incredibly, he's going to be playing. He's not going to miss a game from it. So that's good news for the Bullets. All right, Simon, let's take a deep breath. We'll hear from TABtouch, and when we come back, we'll talk about what's happening around the rest of the league.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on TABtouch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose TABtouch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
Okay, back on Hoops Evans Basketball Hustle. I'm here with Simon Mitchell. Okay, Simon, let's take a look at what's happening across the rest of the league. Let's start at the Sydney Kings, because I don't know if I've seen this happen ever before. So they'd signed a new import, Lamonte Turner. They'd got him out here. He was supposed to be the point guard that comes in to take some of the pressure off Jalen Adams. They work him out, and I don't know if we'll ever know the full story, but either they didn't like what they saw, or he was carrying an injury, or he just wasn't in shape. But whatever it was, they had to tear up his contract before he even played a game. Yeah, I mean, when you heard this news, what the hell did you think? I mean, you don't see this thing very often.
No, you don't. But I've got a little bit of empathy for the Kings in this one, more so than it seems like the the general public. There seems to be an element of they should know his physical well-being.
Well,
and all you can really go on when you're dealing with is the word of the athlete, the agent, and the medical staff of whatever team he's come from. Now, I don't know Lamonte's background significantly, but I believe he's been out of basketball a little while.
Yes, he has. Yes.
So you don't have the access to the former club, which have got anything relevant to you. All you've got is the word of the player and the word of his agency, and then you're taking the risk. Now, it's not impossible. Like what's happened, the scenario that's happened is not unusual. I mean, back in the day, we used to call it the shrinkage, right?
Yes.
The Pacific shrink.
Yep.
You'd come across and a 6'9" bloke was all of a sudden 6'3". The health has the same issue as the height, that, someone who's in tip-top shape and ready to go as soon as they land is not necessarily in tip-top shape and ready to go. So I've got a little bit more sympathy for Sydney. They've obviously done their the due diligence on his arrival in regards to checking on his health. He's not passed the test, and they've made the bold choice, the bold decision. So, look, I don't think it's quite as big a deal as people seem to think. We've been in a similar circumstance with Phoenix, where we've had injuries. We've brought a player out and been assured that he's ready to go, and had the player turn up, come in for the physical, and he's nowhere near ready to go, and you have to send them home. So it can happen. I guess this one's just highlighted by the timing of it, in that it's that it now means that they play the rest of the year without a replacement player for Kelly Leopepe.
Yes.
So it's look, I don't think it's quite as big a deal as everyone wants it make it out to be. I think people probably want to throw stones at the Kings a little bit. And that it's just one of those things that unfortunately happens in international basketball.
I don't know if it actually hurts their championship aspirations as much as you might think when you now don't have an import that you were relying on, because it's been a fascinating ongoing discourse with Brian Goorjian, where he's talked at the end of every single game that he wants more help for Jalen Adams, and he wants to get the ball out of Jalen's hands, and he wants him to play as a two-guard. What this means is that Jalen's going to have the ball in his hands more. That's the simple fact of it. That's not necessarily a bad thing. How do you see it How do you see this playing out in terms of how they will go for the rest of the season?
Well, a wise man once said that you can't lose what you never had.
Yes.
So they're certainly not going to miss him because they've never had him.
Yep.
Now, this can probably, it's a calculated risk, I guess. And Brian's been around this game forever, and he knows the mentality and the makeup of his team. And, he's publicly put a little pressure on a couple of his boys and said, well, these guys need a little bit of help. They're not quite performing at the level I'd like. And that would prick up the hairs on the back of the neck a little bit and say, well, hang on a minute. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised to see a few inspired performances by some of the blokes who felt like Lamonte was going to come in and take their minutes. So, look, from that standpoint, that can go one of two ways. It either can put players in their shell, or it'll be players, that a Bruce or a guy like a Liafa, they're going to take that personally and not take it personally in the sense that I'm taking offence and I don't want to play for you anymore, but take it personally in the sense that I'll accept the challenge. So, look, I don't think Sydney will be hurt by this too much. I think it's more just a public perception thing that and people think they're a little bit disorganised with it. But, these things come with risk and, this one didn't work.
Yeah. I want to get your thoughts on Cam Oliver. It's been a fascinating ride the entire way since he got here. And I think you might have even mentioned early in the season that he doesn't look like he's a Brian Goorjian player. And it's probably panned out like that. And it's been fascinating. But I've talked to Cody about this right throughout the season, and at least openly, we haven't noticed that he's sulked. We haven't seen that his attitude necessarily is bad, and there's been times where he doesn't play, but it looks like he's still turned up to work and he's still trying when he's out on the floor for the most part. And you look at these last two games that they had last week, and he doesn't play the entire second half against Melbourne, but then he sucks it up and he has 15 points, 17 rebounds against the Taipans, and he's really crucial in that win. Well, I mean, what have you made of this whole situation with Cam and Gorge throughout the season?
Yeah, I think they're making it work to the best of their abilities. Like Brian had a lot to do in the off season. There was a certain Australian team that needed a bit of coaching, and this is a new marriage for the Kings. Bringing Gorge in, it's new, even though he's been there previously. There's new ownership, new management, new GM, new CEO, all these things that you have to be able to work together, and you have to know each other's wants and needs. And
he's also talked about how his job, the biggest job, was to rebuild their culture because of how it all seemed to fall apart for them last year.
Yeah, I mean, every coach comes into a situation and feels the need to sort of stamp their authority on a group and their stamp of the cultural stand and what their expectations are, and they shift from coach to coach. And there's no doubt that Cam's an incredibly gifted player, and I think I actually agree with you in this. I think the way that he's approached his basketball this year, regardless of performance, his approach is been sterling. Yep. And I think that he's been extraordinarily productive given the minutes that he plays. And I'm really happy for Cam. I like him. I've had a few dealings with him over the years. All pleasant. I just think he's a nice bloke, and I'm happy to see him doing well whilst under duress. Not under duress, probably the wrong word, but under the microscope of people trying to pull them down a little bit. So I think his performance has been pretty strong, and I think he's doing everything within his powers to play as per instructed.
I agree. So what we do know is it's going to continue to be a dramatic ride for them the rest of the way, that's for sure. You can say the same thing about the Adelaide 36ers. Dramas followed them. Well, you go back to the preseason when they made their change in coach, and then dramas continued to follow them all the way through. They're an amazing story because at their best, they're as good as anybody. When they're up and going and playing with emotion and being aggressive and things are going their way, I think you could make a case they're the best team in the competition. They can also play like they're the worst team in the competition when things aren't going their way. But right now, for the first time since everything fell apart in Melbourne 2 months ago, they got Sunday Dech, DJ Vasiljevic, Montrezl Harrell and Kendrick Davis back together. So now is when we're going to be really able to judge what their potential is. They're just coming off a win against the Hawks, a third win against the Hawks for the season, and before that, they did have to shake off what was probably a game that they threw away against the Jack Jumpers. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on the 36ers right now?
I respectfully disagree.
Yes.
Their best is as good as anybody's.
Yep.
I just don't see it.
Yeah, sure.
I think they're a tremendously potent offensive team. And if you get them on a night when all things are firing, they're a very, very difficult team to negotiate. But I still feel most teams would be confident of being able to score. Now,
well, just touching on that, they are the worst defensively rated team in the competition. So that backs up what you're saying.
Yeah. So I struggle to put them amongst the league's elite, along with their record and especially their road record. So I think the NBL, the media of the NBL, have certainly done a wonderful job of promoting the 36ers.
Especially Montrez. They love Montrez,
and especially Montrez.
Yes.
Yep. No, I think we've overstated some of his performances. But look, the thing is, and there's no doubting it, they're very talented. They've got 4 guys on that team that can take the game by the scruff of the neck at any given moment. So that's probably where you're coming from with regards to their best is the best. If all 4 are on point on any given night, or even just 3 of the 4, then they're going to be a handful for anybody. But yeah, I think there's some teams that probably deserve some of the accolades and that have been thrown Adelaide's way as best team for this. And I just think there's other teams that we can be talking about a little bit more. Now, they certainly got to run home that they can push for the play-in. And I think as a play-in team, if they really grab a little momentum from here until the end of the season and find themselves into a play-in, then they're going to be a tough matchup. But we haven't seen that really this year over a long course where there's they've won 5 of 6 or something like that, which is what they're going to have to do down the stretch here. So, not saying it's not within their capabilities. I just think that they need to take it one game at a time, and we can sit back and watch and see how it all plays out for them.
No, you're right. They don't have much room for error because they're 10-12, and I think we'll learn a lot when they get to Perth on Friday night, play the Wildcats. If they win that game, then maybe they're legitimate, but if they continue to struggle on the road, then maybe they stay where they are, and that's outside of the top 6. Melbourne United is the other team I want to get your thoughts on. So they've won their last 2 games, but like I touched on at the start, far from convincing, but they won by having perfectly executed last plays. So you can give credit to Dean Vickerman for having those plays to go to, but also, like you said earlier, that he's got those experienced players that know how to execute in the clutch moments. So the first one against the Kings was obviously Golding setting the couple of picks that got Jack White open, and then Daly found him under the basket. And the second one was the ball got to Jack White. Jack White hands it off to Chris and gets the screen. Jonah Bolden switches onto him and gives Golding that little bit of space to get the shot off and hit the game winner. 2 things. How much credit do you give Melbourne for that late execution, but how unimpressive have they been to at least get to that point where they're still nowhere near the same team that they were in that first half of the season?
Look, I think peel this one back. There's a lot to talk about, isn't there, with Melbourne United? Firstly, I'm not sure Dino designed a play for a 40-foot shot over Jonah Bolden.
No.
I'm going to give Dean all the credit in the world for the baseline play and the punch play into Daly and then the back screen. Yep. Dino's handprint all over that. But yeah, I think the 40-foot jumper over Jonah Bolden, I think we've got to tip the hat to Chris Golding and his brilliance in that one. Sure. Chris was amazing the whole of the game. Yep. And it's hard to fathom that he might be having one of his best seasons this year, and no one's talking about all league stuff. So he's certainly been extremely impressive, and that was as good a performance as we've seen this year from anyone whose name's not Bryce Cotton.
Yeah.
Where are they at? You know what? They're second on the ladder.
Yep.
And they're not scratching the surface on where they can be as a team. So for me, it's a little bit not intimidating, but it's okay. Take notice, keep an eye on them. They can build because they do have that veteran core. But it also, are they passing the eye test at the moment? They've fallen over the line against Cairns. They've fallen over the line against the
New
Breakers,
Zealand,
and a fairly good win against Sydney. it just seems there's a few barometers on that team that need to be playing well. And, I think when Jack White's up and about and he's feeling included and he's got a little energy about him, I feel like they're a really good team and going to be tough. But, look, they're not near their best, but they don't need to be right now. They're in a pretty good position with a little chunk of the season to go. They've got time to build.
Yeah, and like I said at the start, if they beat the Hawks on Saturday, they're on top of the ladder. So that is a good position to be in. And they're also healthy. They're probably the only team right now, them and the Hawks, that are at full health as well. So that's a bonus. Perth Wildcats, they had a horrible loss in Wollongong by 32 points in this road stretch, but they're about to play their last of 7 games straight on the road, and they've won the other 5. So they've done really well to navigate this. They've done most of it without Christian Doolittle. Bryce Cotton has been Bryce Cotton. He had another 32 points and 9 assists against the Jack Jumpers in basically 2.5 quarters on Sunday. To be 5-1, I mean, we'll learn more when they play Brisbane. So by the time we release that, we'll know that result. But you would have to think that they're a really good chance to go 6-1 on this road stretch. They're looming pretty large, aren't they? They might be one team that deserves to be talked about a bit more than the 36ers.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, they're getting it done, 5-1, and whether they have 6-1 or 5-2, you're still going to take 5-2 ahead of that road schedule. So they've been brilliant. And to do it without, Christian Doolittle has been a phenomenal effort and completely under the radar. Look, they're tracking pretty well. Look, having said that, a lot of that is on the back of Bryce Cotton's brilliance.
Yes.
And I think some people are maybe not giving them the credit they deserve because they're just saying, well, it's just Bryce being exceptional. But he doesn't really show any signs of slowing down, is he? Except that one game against Illawarra. So over the course of a series, Bryce's brilliance it seems to be there throughout the duration. So what we have seen is Dylan Windler really stepping up in the absence of Christian Doolittle. This isn't a surprise to anyone who knows Dylan and his capabilities. He's a really high level basketball player, and I think he's been willing to accept a role at Perth, and part of that role is that in the absence of Christian Doolittle, that they've asked a little more of him. He's been shown to everybody he's extremely capable of more. That's not to say that he should be producing more now that Doolittle's back. It really just shows you his abilities and his willingness to sacrifice what he's capable of for the betterment of the team. And they're a funny one. I think maybe some of the mistrust is in the Wildcats has just been with the people are talking about their defense, and for whatever reason Adelaide seem to get away with it. But it's look, they're tracking beautifully, and John Riley's got that offense really humming, and look, there's still improvement in that team as well. Yep. I still think we haven't seen the best of Keanu Pinder, and there's still a period here where teams can really get rolling, and the fact that Perth's been 5-1 on the road, potentially 6-1 after tonight, and to go back home for a little stretch, that's quite ominous. Yeah,
they got 5 of the last 6 at home after the game in Brisbane, so they've done well to put themselves in a real good spot to make a run for a top 2 position. One team that hasn't is the New Zealand Breakers. What have you made of things with Taco Fall? I mean, the record says it all, and they've gone. What have they gone? They go 1-12 with him in the team. So I mean, you can't blame it all on him, but it has fallen apart since his arrival. Obviously, a 5-game suspension for Parker Jackson Cartwright didn't help, but it's also probably helped, like I talked about with Cody last week, helped Taco play a bit better in that 5-game stretch because the game has slowed down a lot. You're in a unique position. I mean, Joe Chi's not the same sort of player, but he is a monster playing in the league that doesn't have too many 7-foot-plus players. I mean, when you reflect on how you tried to get Joe involved, can you see some sort of similarities in what the Breakers have tried to do with Taco?
I think they're quite different players, and the makeup of our team was a little different than what New Zealand's is currently. Joe Chi, when healthy, I thought was transitioning into the NBL quite nicely. Yeah, his ability in the block, his ability to make plays when you're throwing the ball was pretty high, and I think in the pick and roll as well. So Taco is normally really about cementing under the rim and throwing in the ball as much as possible, and not quite the pick and roll threat that Joe Chi was. Now defensively, you probably start to come into a little bit of similarities. Now Joe was a little bit more mobile, but at the same time, like both tend to run out of gas pretty quick. I think the pace of the game of the NBL doesn't suit the really tall players, and it really starts to stretch the stamina of some of those guys. And we had our struggles with Joe in pick and rolls and how to defend and what schemes to put in for him that would help and work. And we tried pretty much everything and never really found a comfort zone with him. Now Taco's a little bit longer, a little bit taller, and not quite as mobile. So you've got what you've got. I'm not sure there's too many sort of schemes you can actually work with in regards to Taco. So look, it's an interesting one. I certainly don't point at Taco and say he's the reason they're losing.
No.
I think that he seems to have worked his way in as much as possible. When he's made the focal point, he's certainly shown an ability to score at a rather efficient rate. If he's making his free throws, he can score quite well.
Just in that game against Melbourne, he drew 10 fouls. So I mean that's making an impact if he shoots the fouls a bit better. But even just putting Rob Lowe and Marcus Lee in foul trouble, he's having an impact.
And these are the ones that get called. I actually feel like he's been mugged a little bit.
Yep.
Be careful what I say here. We've got them coming up pretty soon, and we'd like to get a mugging in of our own if we can. But look, I feel like he's probably been dealt with a little bit unfairly off the ball, and certainly some of the players that float around in the league, if they were given a tenth of the physicality that he has to put up with, then they would shoot a hell of a lot more free throws than they already currently do. So look, I feel for him a little bit on that front. But you brought up, Parker Jackson Cartwright and maybe the incompatibility of a guy who needs to be plugged near the rim and a guy who wants to be able to get on the rim and make plays. And so look, that's one for the New Zealand people to work out. It's a unique talent that they've brought into the league, and not one that many coaches have had to sort of deal with. And it's certainly a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, every coach after they play New Zealand right now talks about how different it is trying to come up with a way to try and stop him. And it's not working right now, but I'm fascinated to see how it works next season once they have an off season to work it out, and also put together a team that suits Taco. There's every chance that it really does work next season. So we'll keep an eye on how it goes. But let's take our last break, Simon. When we come back, we'll get ready for another full round. Round 17 all of a sudden. We're getting to the business end, so we'll run through the games that we've got coming up.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball has even bounced? Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? You've got the touch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today.
You win some, you lose more.
Okay, back on Hoops Evans Basketball Hustle. Last segment for this week. I'm here with Simon Mitchell. Before we get to the games, Simon, the summer shootout. I've talked to Cody about this, and it's very gimmicky. It's frustrating when you hear commentators on the broadcast talk about how the teams are changing their game to try to put up points in games where they've nominated, when I'm 100% convinced inside the walls of a club you're not mentioning it at all. But what do you think of the concept?
Well, I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it, to be honest, even though we've been part of it. I'd certainly agree with you on that, the latter part. This does not enter the conversation for the players and club and team. Maybe if you're completely out of playoff contention, it might be let's have a swing for the rafters. But look, this is just not for the teams. It's just not something you're going to focus on. There's far more important things like winning games and seedings for the playoffs and home team advantage or home ground advantages, all these sorts of things that are far more at the front of mind and the importance of winning, far more at the front of mind than a check.
I've heard Peter Hooley say that the Phoenix have an advantage because you picked the last game of the summer shootout against the Wildcats on January 31, and you'll know the points that you need to score to win the summer shootout in that game. There's no way in the world you're going to Perth for that game thinking that you're going to try to score the amount of points to win the summer shootout. That'll be something that Josh King and the players would not mention once, surely.
I dare say our focus will be a little bit more on Bryce Cotton and how we get the ball out of his hands in the last moments of a shot clock.
Yes.
I don't think it figures.
No, me either. All right, we've got a big round to look forward to. So thanks to TABtouch, round 17 in the NBL. Head to tabtouch.com.au or the app and find out the odds as these games get closer. Starts Thursday night New Zealand Breakers, they're finally back to Spark Arena. They've probably only played 2 games in 2 months at Spark Arena, so they're finally back there. They host the Jack Jumpers, who they're still sitting 6th, but now not only have they lost Sean McDonald and Will Magnay for the regular season, they're without Majuk Deng for this game. This has a Taco Fall domination written all over it. Do the Breakers get this done?
Yeah, look, it's they've been close a little bit. They've had some. I feel like they've built over the last few weeks without maybe the results. Even that game against Melbourne, they seem to be in a really good position to win. Look, if there's one team I'm not going to tip against because of injury, it's the Tassie Jack Jumpers, because they seem to like sticking it in the eye of people who ever doubt them. But having said that, just based on excitement of playing back at Spark Arena, the improvement in the New Zealand Breakers, and maybe a little bit about that injury list, I will go with the Breakers in this one.
And Parker Jackson Cartwright back, isn't he, as well? So this is his first game back. So doubleheader Friday night, Simon. First up, we got a Sunshine Stoush, Brisbane Bullets, Cairns Taipans. I mean, after we record this, the Bullets will play Wednesday as well, so very short turnaround. This has a Taipans upset written all over it too. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I'm feeling for Brisbane at the moment. They can't seem to take a trick. Been down that road before, and it's not pleasant. All you can do is just front up and give it the next man up mentality. But there comes a time where there's no next man to go up. So I think the Bullets are just about there. It's really been a rough run for them. The good news, I guess it's filtered through, is that Josh Bannon is going to be good to go, which is great news for Brisbane fans. He's really displaying a bit of form the last few weeks. So look, it's a tough one. The Cairns Taipans, you're not really sure who's showing up. Brisbane have been a little bit more consistent, especially offensively. Yeah, I might just tap Brisbane just for this one, although I wouldn't be surprised to see Cairns get up.
No, they'll be hoping that even though Tyrell Harrison and Rocco Zakasi are not playing against Perth, that at least one of them gets up to play on Friday night. They need a big body. Second up on Friday, the Perth Wildcats back at home for the first time in more than a month, playing the Adelaide 36ers. It's a chance for this to be a statement game for whoever wins, isn't it? How do you think it'll play out?
I think Perth have been making statements for a little while. So I don't know if they need to make another one, but I will be backing them in just because I think they're better. Adelaide have not proven to be a reliable road team at this point in time, and until they do. And I know that was a nice little cameo up in Sydney. But there needs to be more than a 2-7 record on the road for me to jump on board. So I'll be tipping the Perth Wildcats in that one.
Then we get to Saturday. Home game for you. First time at the State Basketball Centre for the South East Melbourne Phoenix this season. First of three straight games there. So I'm sure it'll be nice to get in front of the home fans again. You play the New Zealand Breakers, and can you explain to me why the Breakers are the team that cops the worst schedule in the competition? They play in Auckland on Thursday night, and then they have to come to Melbourne to play the first game on Saturday. This seems to happen to the Breakers a lot. You probably don't have too much sympathy for them on this occasion because you're playing them, but they do seem to cop the rough end, don't they?
I think they like Thursday night home games.
Well, maybe it might be their fault. You might be right.
They request them. That's one of their preferences is to get Thursday night home games. Also, to share their games around. I mean, a lot of this is requested from the Breakers. So, everyone gets a tough schedule. You have your home games, you have your away games. A lot of people seem to complain about it, but at the end of the day, outside of South East Melbourne having to go to Perth 3 times this year, it's pretty even draw. So, we've had the situation not too dissimilar when we've played New Zealand on a Thursday and had to come back for a Saturday home game. Yes. I think you'd prefer to have it the other way around when you play at home, and then when you've got a little fatigue, you swing for the rafters on the road. But look, it's an interesting one, as we spoke about just previously, that they're a unique team with a unique skill set. The insertion of Parker Jackson Cartwright back into the team, it's hard to sort of scout for them in the sense that we haven't seen a lot of them in their current format in recent weeks. So look, it'll be a challenge. And as we spoke earlier, New Zealand have been really right there in most of these games recently.
Yep, they have. Second up on Saturday, top spot goes on the line where we go back to Wollongong, Illawarra Hawks, Melbourne United. There's a lot of bad blood between these two teams, and you throw in the fact that they're playing over top spot, then it's even magnified even more. And Justin Tatum was pretty angry after their loss in Adelaide as well. So he'll have his Hawks team pretty fired up. What do you think? Who gets this one?
Yeah, I know Melbourne got the win up in Illawarra last time, and Illawarra have probably been a little shaky as of 2025. I'm not sure where their record is, but it's not clean. I know obviously they lost to us on New Year's Eve, and they've lost to Cairns and now Adelaide as well. Yeah, so but the one thing that kind of stands out for me is the form of Sam Froling in that last game against Adelaide.
Yeah,
and,
well,
and
you haven't talked about
he's given
35 points, 13 rebounds.
Yeah, no, he was outstanding, and he's given Melbourne a few issues going back to last season, especially during the semi-finals series. So I think he'll prove to be a bit of a handful for the Melbourne United in this one, and I'll be tipping Illawarra.
There we go. On the back of that, do they end up finishing top? Is this the one that sort of determines that?
I think we've got a lot of there's going to be a lot of machinations between now and the end of the season, and look, it certainly puts them in the whoever wins this, I guess it puts them in the driver's seat to determine their own destiny. But look, it's just so close, and I think it'll come down to the last round as to who finishes in that top two.
Two more games on Sunday. First up, Sydney Kings. They're at home, and they'll be pretty fresh. So they haven't played now since back on Sunday. So they've got a full week to get ready for this one, and they're hosting the Tasmania Jack Jumpers who are banged up. Do you give the tip to the Kings?
Yeah, I think sitting back on a Sunday afternoon, they've been sitting with their feet in the air all week. This is the want of the Sydney Kings. This is what they get. So, look, I know that some say they don't have a very favourable draw. I think their Sunday afternoons have been quite pleasurable for them. So this will be a tough one for the Jack Jumpers, given the current state of their roster. Again, they're just that team that the players come in, they know their roles, but I just don't know if the personnel they have right now can fulfill the roles of some of the people that are missing. So I think Shawnee Mack, for me, is a huge loss. Yep. Not a huge loss. I think it doesn't take Albert Einstein to figure that one out. But when you throw in Majok Deng...
Well, they won 8 straight games as soon as he came back into the lineup.
Yeah, they did, and they look better at the offensive end, much better. Yeah. To lose Majok Deng as well now, look, it's just asking a lot of players that maybe aren't quite as shiny as those two. So I'll go with the Kings on this one. Yep.
Second up on Sunday, Cairns Taipans back at home to the 36ers. Both teams would have played on Friday night, so that kind of cancels each other out, even though Adelaide's coming back from Perth. But, the 36ers can't lose this one. If they want to stay in the top 6 race, they can't drop this one on the road, but won't be easy.
I'm not sure what just happened then, but as you talked about Cairns versus Adelaide, I think I just had a flashback to sitting in a hotel room in Tasmania, watching Adelaide absolutely wipe the floor for Cairns for 25 minutes, and then seeing Cairns come back and win the impossible and ending Adelaide's season 2 years ago. So
yes,
I'd have to go back to the record books and see if that actually happened. But I could just see myself in that hotel room. I think it was up in Cairns. But,
no, it absolutely was.
Yeah, look. Yeah, that I'm going to go with Cairns Taipans in this one. Again, it's a lot of travel there for Adelaide to come from where are they at? Perth.
Yes.
And then travel up to Cairns. That's as far as you travel in our league, and with a team that hasn't really been sparkling on the road, despite the record of Cairns Taipans, I think they've shown since the click over the calendar that there's a bit of talent there. Yep. And look, I think there's been a little bit of unfair expectation on 40's group that okay, you've got the majority of the group back now. You can start winning. You've got to completely realign everyone's roles when these players come in. So it takes a few games, and I think they've shown improvement, but I'm not sure they've been in a position that they're ready to win. That seems to be building. We saw them last night against the Phoenix that they were really good for 3/4 of the game, and I think at home we're going to go with the Cairns. I'm going with the Cairns Taipans.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. Last game we'll talk about this week, Monday night, Illawarra Hawks hosting the Brisbane Bullets. Bullets are banged up, and now they're playing a third game in the space of, 5 days. So they play at home on Friday, and then they head to Wollongong for this one on Monday after playing against Perth on the Wednesday as well. So this might be a schedule win above everything else for the Hawks, just given the Bullets situation right now.
Yeah, this might be one that the Hawks need just to sort of get it. Not that they need to get their season back on track, but just as a little bit of they can try a few things in this one. I think they'll win comfortably, and I'm sure the people of Illawarra will show up on a Monday night and be very rowdy for them. So, yeah, I'm going with Illawarra in this one. I think there's just been a little bit too much carnage for the Bullets in recent weeks, and even though they've got some bodies coming back in, again, I go back to you've got to realign roles, and it takes a little bit of time.
Yep, absolutely. All right, that's our preview. Thanks to TABtouch Simon. As we thought at the start, this was no problem filling up an hour and a little bit because there's so much going on across the NBL right now, but it's been fun to break it all down with you. We'll wrap it up there. I'm Chris Pike, and I'll say thank you for listening for another week and leave you with a final word, Simon, with whatever might be on your mind.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the first topic of our discussion and just touch base on Darryl Pearce's passing. And just, again, condolences out to all his family and teammates and all the people, the lives that he's touched throughout the years in basketball. And we are a small community, the basketball community, and it's not just in Australia. As this game has opened up and communications have opened up, and you form relationships across the world in our sport, and this death will affect a lot of people, and my thoughts are with everybody, especially the teammates he had at the Adelaide 36ers and North Melbourne Giants, and the sterling teams that he played on at both clubs. And just a shout out to those people, and rest in peace, Darryl.
Can you picture the first goal before the ball's even bounced? You might have the touch. When the weather's wet, can you feel who'll triumph? You've got the power. Can you read the footy future in the mullet of a full forward? Then you too might be harnessing the power of the touch. Got the touch? Download the TABtouch app today.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.